question one, what makes an inside linebacker a star? So how do I know that I have a guy that I need to be planning my defense around?
One of the biggest things that I think lets you know that an inside linebacker is special. We talk about in JDFB coaching systems, key reads, right? Everything is key reads. It's again, I go through the one-on-one games. A play is a series of one-on-one games. If you take a linebacker, an inside linebacker in a 4-2-5, and really in any defensive system, and you say, okay, the series of one-on-one games, one-on-one game number one is my key read. And let's say I get a pull inside. So now I trigger, that key read triggers me to, not in that way, it just triggers, explodes me. I fire, I attack the first open door past the A gap. And so I'm scraping, and as I'm getting there, second one-on-one game, as somebody comes to block me. I won the first one by getting the key read on that guard. He tried to add a number to the play side. I triggered, and I ripped through. Now my second one-on-one game is the guy coming to block me. I ripped through that block. One-on-one game number two. So we work a rip drill. One-on-one game number three, I track the back, right? Like now I go to an in-out drill. I track the near hip of the back. I find the run play. So the first one was my guard read drill. The second one was my rip drill. Now those could come in either order. I could pick up the back and then rip, or I could rip and then pick up the back, but it goes to my in-out drill, my rip drill, defeating the block. That's 3 one-on-one games. And the final one is I make the tackle. That's the fourth one. Of course, we drill tackling, hawk tackling. That's my fourth one. That's 4 one-on-one games. Well, each one of those can be taught. You're going to drill them in our 4-2-5 defense system and in all of our defensive systems. And we, all of our, starting with our gold clients, they get access to the defensive drill system. So they're going to have access to all those drills, but you have to teach them. And you spend a lot of time on key reads. And if you've ever coached young linebackers, or you've ever coached inexperienced linebackers, you've seen them stand frozen as everything moves around them, or backing up, or doing anything but what a linebacker should do. What tells you that a linebacker is special, is a star, is if now, does this happen immediately at the youth level? No. But when we get a kid on varsity who's got a significant amount, even a year or two of playing experience, but generally, these kids are going to have more playing experience. When we get a kid on the varsity level who's a star, the first thing that you recognize is he doesn't need to know key reads. It's instinct. It's whatever it is about his makeup, whatever it is that goes on in his brain, he understands when this picture starts to form, this is where the ball is going. And what makes those guys special, or maybe they get, maybe it's a thing where they get beat on a misdirection one time. They don't get beat again. And I don't mean they don't get beat again that game. I mean, they don't get beat again. They learn. They're constantly processing and learning, and it's subconscious. So I always talk about when you get that kid, leave him alone. Yeah, he's going to go through your drills, and he's going to, he's going to, kind of whatever, just not go through the motions. He'll probably do them really well, because a lot of those linebackers that are special, they're special people too. And they're not just going to blow you off because they don't need this. Especially if you're a good coach, and you can always find things to coach. Now, don't get me wrong. When I say leave him alone, I say don't worry about, what'd you see that took you there? I don't know. Well, let me tell you, if I don't know keeps getting him there, he's special. I just leave him alone. If he says, hey, did the guard pull? I don't know. I just started blacked out, and all of a sudden I'm there to tackle. And this sounds dumb, probably in some respect, but I'll tell you that Joe Cawthon, I want to say, he was a linebacker coach at Valdosta State years ago, and he's not at Valdosta State very long, so it's not like, I don't think, if I remember right. But anyway, I saw him speaking at a Glacier Clinic several years ago, and it was the first time that I had heard this. And I had already recognized some kids you don't mess with them. I had a couple I think I just finished coaching one who was extremely smart, went to William and Mary, decided not to play football. Could have gone on a partial to William and Mary, but basically was smart enough to be like, I'm gonna go to William and Mary. If they don't see me as a full scholarship kid, I should just go to school and become whatever I want. And so decided not to. But he was an FCS player. But kind of had his heart set on that William and Mary. But he was extremely smart, but he was extremely instinctive. I had coached another several years before that, probably 7 years before that, who was the only player that we had at that time go play Division One. Extremely instinctive. Came over as a sophomore and said, Coach, when they do this, I can do this, I can pick it off. Okay. Picks it off to 3 plays later. Coach, when they do this, if I blitz, I can get to the quarterback. Okay. 3 plays later, sacks quarterback. It's like, I don't know. I don't even know what he's doing. He sees something. When you get those kids, like, so anyway, they just, it's like, I don't even know what they're looking at. So Joe Cawthon, I believe Joe Cawthon, as I could have the name wrong, as a Valdosta State linebacker coach. And it's, of course, a linebacker coach, what's the question always going to be? What's your reads? What's your key reads? I says, we don't teach key reads. Okay. And now keep in mind, he's got Valdosta State was at that time was winning Division II national championships. So they're the top of Division II. A lot of their kids could probably play FCS level easily. Some of them are bounce backs from FBS. So he says, we teach the picture. And essentially within a step or two, they see the whole picture. And I think this is what those guys are seeing. We've got the kid who's not instinctive, who's not a natural at this. He's got to see guard, pulls, follow, doesn't fill. He pulls, I follow. Now my eyes get up, see, back. And these guys, these special linebackers, they just see all 11 players on the offense, and they're like, and they probably see every one of them on the defense too, and they're like, this is going here. And they see picture. And so I don't think you can teach that to your average slappy, high school linebacker, or, rely on that for, the JVs and freshmen and your youth teams. Like, that's not real. But he has high level linebackers. That's fine. I think that's probably how they all got there. They probably are all pretty instinctive linebackers. Coaching, I had some really good linebackers at Ellsworth. One of them was second in the nation in tackles. Super instinctive, super fast, super quick, undersized, played D2, just because of his size, but like super instinctive. And it was like, my job is to stay out of his way. Is it just to leave him alone? But I spent more time trying to coach him, and I don't know if I did a successful job, but tried. Spent more time coaching him as a person than coaching him as a football player. So they see that. I guess they see that picture, and that's, you can talk about the intangibles. I mean, the tangibles. He's 6'2", he's 225, he runs a 4.6, whatever. Yeah, but at the high school level, if he's 5'8", 180, runs a 5 flat, and has that, sees the picture, is instinctive, he's probably your starter.
Right. Yeah. So I can think back. So I have played against 2 D1 linebackers in my life. I say against. I played with one as a freshman, which meant I was the scout team running back, and he was just lighting me up all the time.
Sure.
He ended up going to Oklahoma State, and I still keep up with him some. He's in coaching. But I remember watching him during games and on film, and he showed, I called it efficiency and movement, because, we have to teach a 1 linebacker take a read step forward, get closer to the line, start at 5 yards so you don't get caught in the wash, read a guard, whatever. This guy played outside linebacker, and his feet looked like they were stuck in concrete. But it's because, like you just said, he was seeing that picture. But when he triggered, Jesus Christ, you weren't going to get him like on a counter or something ridiculous, a boot that got outside of him because you weren't sucking him inside. But if you ran in there, he was fast enough and had the instinct to come fill without problem, no matter what. I unfortunately took some head-to-head shots from him in my lifetime, and I can tell you that he was very stout and very fast and could get there when it was time. But that's what I've seen in all of those the two D1 guys that I've seen, and there was probably some others. And I can remember watching some on film as in high school too. But they were never in the wrong place. Like it just seemed like it didn't matter what, they didn't need to be taught that the steps or no, I'm going to go where the ball is, coach. Thanks. I think we try to teach it to our backer. We teach a lot of like fast fit, option fit, split fit, right? Like our counterfeit, I guess you'd call it. And a lot of that come out of the two back system, fullback and running back moving to the outside. Fullback fills, running back is wide. Fullback goes the other way, running back's this way. And we don't see that very much anymore. I guess an H-back you could probably put into those reads, but in my mind, that's what a D1 guy's seeing without being taught. Like all of this flow is going somewhere. Yeah. It's going there for a reason, right? Yeah. I think maybe it's called fast flow and split flow, whatever. But
so with the 4-3 defense system, we used to really, really focus on that. And like you said, it was very heavy. That's Miami 4-3 stuff, and it was very heavy. Two back sets, right? I formation, and we've gotten away from it because, like I said, we had fast flow, split flow, full flow, not full. There was split flow, fast flow, full flow or something like that, downhill coming at you, and then split with the counter, fast. Oh, and dive flow. Dive flow was triple option, dive back, pitch back. So those teaching those pictures, and that came out of the Miami 4-3. I think not specifically, but that was where I really learned it. And those guys in Miami in the 4-3 system, and it works perfectly with that. Heavy backfield reads, but those dudes could read a picture,
right?
And you mentioned, you watch some linebackers, you watch like Ray Lewis in his prime, Bobby Wagner, a few years, not that he's bad now, but certainly starting to decline a little bit, I think. And but maybe not, I don't know. I just kind of got the impression last year, but I wouldn't tell him that, so nobody tell him I said that.
Not ever.
No, don't ever mention it. But I was just looking to see like where 33, he's starting to decline. Natural. You watch the great linebackers, even in the NFL, where everybody is great, right? Every single one of these guys was the best guy on, It just seems like those great inside linebackers at the NFL level, even like you said, everybody else is moving around them. And we talk about it with our outside linebackers, but they have so much distance that I can do this with a high school kid. Everybody else is moving around them, and they're just kind of like, okay, like they're looking at the situation and then taking their time, very efficient, very clean, look at the situation. And for a position that is so violent, to say, here's Ray Lewis, just watching the play, diagnosing it, taking his time. It's like, I imagine it's like being in the zone. Like you think about being in the zone in basketball. It's kind of where we think about it a lot is basketball, where a guy's just like, catching and shooting and the entire world is slowing down while he sets up and looks at the basket. And he's like, it's like he's shooting a free throw. Everybody else is off the court and he's just in the gym by himself setting this thing up. And what you see is like catch and shoot. And in his mind, it's like catch, look, spin the ball, think about it. And like, that's these great linebackers mentality. Is the game is so slow because in a split second, they are diagnosing the situation, diagnosing the play. I imagine, especially at the NFL, a lot of that may come through film study and knowing picture, that's going to be this. But they play so slow at the start of the play sometimes, and then so fast when they, it's that don't go, don't go till go when But I would never teach that to an inside linebacker, right?
Right.
It's like our coaches will be out there with the guys that aren't the studs, the young guys, and I'm like, and they're taking read steps of like you said, they're 5 yards and they're taking read steps and they're at 2 yards. Like, and then they were trying to read as they run. And I'm like, and sometimes those guys will be the guys who 2 weeks ago were standing in the cement. And I'm like, okay, listen, you got them going forward. So I'm not going to try to change that too much, but
Right.
will you back them up to 6 yards so that at least they're only at 3.5 when they do all that instead of being up as a defensive lineman. And it's like, you're right. You never see great linebackers doing that. Their read steps, if they take them, are quiet. They're under control. It's just it's impressive to watch, and it makes coaching really easy. It makes you look really smart.
Like another kind of a trait that I have seen in star linebackers is they're never blocked. Their ability to block shed and read, like even you can get a double team to them, and it seems like they're just letting you do that while they read what's going on. So it's like, I don't want to have to waste the energy to fight you yet. But now I know where it's going, and now my block shed is like immaculate. That's just something that's always stood out to me about just the really good linebackers you watch on film is even when it doesn't matter, they're getting down blocked and they got guys coming and they're going to get another block in a minute. It's just, it doesn't matter to them. They're going to find that crease. They're going to fill it with violence.
Yep.
And they're going to cause chaos at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, they're not passing up open doors. They're not passing up, they're not trying to, they're not going sideways and over the top. But you mentioned block destruct. When I was at Ellsworth and we were recruiting linebackers, so the way that we did things, you have 12 out of states in Iowa. So those out of states were mostly going to come from South Florida, because that was where our head coach had his pipeline set up. He had coached in South Florida in high school, and so our 12 out of states were going to come from South Florida, which meant that they weren't going to be, they were going to be the quarterback, they were going to be the receivers, they were going to be maybe the running back, maybe not, because we didn't throw that, depending on how much we want to run the ball. There might be some DBs, maybe some D linemen, but they were not going to be the linebacker. We did have a couple of offensive linemen, but most of the offensive linemen were coming from Iowa, and the linebackers were coming from Iowa. And so, in our recruiting, as we're recruiting in the state of Iowa, you find a receiver in the state of Iowa. We had a couple receivers who would contribute. We had a really good tight end from the state of Iowa, but the big emphasis was on finding those linebackers because we were not going to use out of state spots for linebackers. And I remember we came back and another coach and I had gone to see a game. Both the two teams that were playing were one was in his recruiting area, one was in mine. So we went to the game together. It just happened that it was in like November, and it was in the UNI Dome, so it was warm, and so that was what we chose to do.
Choice.
But we recruited this kid, and both of us are watching him, and we're like, that's the best linebacker that we can get. Anyone better than him is signed to D1. And our head coach said, came back with pulled his film out. We already had his film. Our head coach, we came back to the office that night, and he's in the office, and we're like, watch this kid. Take another look at him. I think we had mentioned him to him, but like we just watch this kid on the field, and he's the best player on that field. And watch the film. He watches the film. He watches the film, and he's like, show me him beating a block. And I'm like, what are we talking about? Like, you just watched him make 25 tackles. But he was absolutely right. At the high school level, that kid never had to beat a block. He never had to beat a block. So we didn't know, because his thing was, I'm about to full ride offer this kid. I need to see him beat a block. We looked and we looked and we looked, and he had all those other things we talked about. We never saw him beat a block. I think we ended up offering him anyway after we just established that like he was so far above everyone else around him that nobody ever got close enough to block him.
Right.
But that is a rare trait among high school linebackers. The ability to really defeat a block is a rare trait among a lot of high school linebackers, and you can get away with it because, as you know, we have Lynn Shackelford on this episode on this podcast, and he talked about the reason they established RPO, they installed RPOs. It's because they couldn't get their high school offensive linemen at a very good program to climb to linebackers, so they just read them. Right? This is not a unique situation. It is hard to get offensive linemen to block linebackers. They might get ISO. That's one thing, but that's not the same thing as scraping off a block and everything like that. So if you have that may not show up for great linebackers, and it may not show up until they're in college, till the offensive linemen level up to them.
Right. So we'll move on to the next question here. What's the role of an inside linebacker in 4-2-5?
Well, we have two of them. So the typical role of the inside linebacker of the Mike linebacker is the leader of the defensive front. The free safety leads the back five, the back end in the 4-2-5, and the Mike linebacker leads the front six. I get people who are like, it's just a 4-4, and I'm like, there's a lot of reasons. It makes them feel faster if we call them safeties, but also that way the free safety can manage 5 guys and the linebacker can manage 6, rather than having the linebacker responsible for 8 and the free safety responsible for 3. It's just it's a better division. It's a better division of your organization than putting too many people in one department. So typically the leader of the defensive front, he's making the strength calls. We want him to be able to recognize tendencies, back sets, things that we see on film. He's got to be a leader on the defense. And that Mike linebacker, we've talked about, the Mike linebacker used to be the guy. You talk about the quarterback on offense, and it was the Mike linebacker on defense. In some places and in some games, that is absolutely the case. But because of so many teams playing sideline to sideline and all the way down the field, the Mike is not at the center of everything happening the way that he was when everybody was in an I and a wing T. So even that sideline to sideline Mike backer can't necessarily get where he needs to go. And the free safety starts to take a much more prominent role in the defense, as we talked about. The Mike, though, is kind of that leader on the defense. And he is one of the things we talk about. We used to talk about linebackers filling gaps. That we don't teach any gaps anymore. We say linebacker has A gap, linebacker has B gap. We don't teach any of that anymore. If you're still teaching that, I think you're missing out on the modernization of football offenses, which is it's not just gaps. And so his job is to fill open doors and to scrape to find the open doors. And so his fit and the things that he's going to do, like we talked about, there's a crease, there's a seam. He's going to take it. He's going to get through there. Daniel swallowed a little camo paint.
Sorry. I'm good.
He's going to get through there, and he's going to fill these open doors wherever they are, wherever he's needed. And especially in the 4-2-5, they are B gap to B gap defenders. The Mike is more of the run stopper. The Will potentially is more of the, he may have to be more of an athlete, especially if you're split field coverage. He's going to have to get out and cover the flats on some split field stuff, and that's the most vulnerable spot. It's mostly going to be into the boundary, so you're okay. But he's kind of your flat defender in some situations out there. Not technically the flat defender, but he's got to get out and help on those. We have the Will call out down and distant tendencies to take a little bit of, giving communication roles to everybody on the defense. Everybody has something to say every snap. The Mike is down in distance, and then he's also looking for formations and tendencies and back sets and calling those things out. The Will is calling out, the Mike is strength call. The Will is the down and distance tendency. And so the Will is going to call out, hey, it's 1st and 10, and 1st and 10 is an open down, but that if you've got a team that runs power and they're a power team, say, hey, power, watch power, watch run, secondary, be alert. They'll throw the here, 3rd and long, hey, watch the pass, third and short, making checks and all those sorts of things that he's got to do. That's the role of the will. As far as leadership is, both of those guys have a major role in getting the defense set. And this is becoming one of my new things: pre-programming the brain of everybody on the defense, pre-programming the brain of everybody on the defense that it's strong right. That's not just setting your best players to the strength. Strength should be 70% of the time where the ball is going. So I'm pre-programming us to be looking over here a little bit more attention over here than over here. I look in the backfield and I see that the back is all set to the left. Well, that's usually zone read to our right. So I'm saying, hey, back's all set. Hey, zone read, watch zone read. And I'm not saying that's always a thing. I'm saying based on our film study, I'm pre-programming. And now everybody on the defense is going, it's zone read, we're to kill this thing. It's no different than a batter who's sitting on a high fastball. Like he might miss the curve. He might just have to foul off the curve, right? But if you get that high fastball and he's looking for that because he thinks that's your best pitch, he gets it, it's going to go a long way. Right. So we're pre-programming the brain, and the will is pre-programming the brain. Hey, it's down in distance. Hey, it's 2nd and 4. Their best run play is ISO. Watch ISO over here. Right. We're pre-programming that by just this information we can have. And these guys do a lot of the pre-programming, especially for the run game.
So I've kind of been introduced. The new defense I'm on is still 4-2-5, and they do things different than what's taught in your system than I've ever been introduced. Yep. We still have a Mike and Will by name, just because you want to tell a kid to go play, but they're boundary and field backers. So I've seen this with corners and safeties and split field. You know, an issue I always had coaching the split field was that, like, I need my Mike. He might be in the boundary, but now he has to know. It's like he always knows he goes to strength, but now he has to go turn around and ask, am I field or boundary? Like, what side am I on? What is our call? And so that they do things a little different here. And it's pretty neat that, you know, they just have a field and boundary backer. And it doesn't change much. They always know what they're doing in the coverage, which, of course, you know, I have a pretty good feeling I'm about to watch some pretty high flying offenses throw the ball around. And so it's necessary to make that change, I feel like. So there isn't that confusion that I dealt with at a much smaller level. But I almost feel like it makes their roles like a little more interchangeable, because they're not going to go to the strength. So placing them as a player by role, it's less of that who hits the run the best. You just better train both of your linebackers to stop the darn run. And the one in the field, you know, you just said a minute ago, like, your will is often going to open the boundary, and then he needs to be able to go cover the flat. Now you get to decide that the guy that's to the boundary can just go cover the flat, but he can also stop run to the boundary. And then your guy on the field side, he's got to be able to get up and go. Of course, we supplement that with a strong safety. The strong safety plays that outside backer role in the field, with just a field outside backer, field safety kind of thing. But I don't think it's changed the roles too much, but I have seen the way we're employing those roles, they just get to stay field and boundary, and it's made it pretty neat. But like everything we've mentioned here, pre-programming and scraping to fill and controlling those front six is still the Mike's job. Like, he still has that to do. It's just pretty neat to kind of see it done in a different way. We're even calling our line, like, the line has a field and a boundary call. So you're not even making an over and under front anymore. It's, I want a 3-tech set into the boundary here because I think they're coming to the boundary. I don't care where the tight end is. So it makes for some pretty neat football. It's a whole new way to look at the game.
You can do that in the 4-2-5 with everybody. You know, the linebackers are almost always in, you know, essentially 30 techs or somewhere in that area, and you can slide them based on what you see. But, you know, that you, again, not teaching gaps. It doesn't really matter if I have a 3 and a 1 or a 1 and a 3 in front of me. I'm still filling open doors, and it's still the same situation.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you're making him less. You don't have to look at big gap ISO and be like, I better have the stud there that's going to take on that block, right? Like, you just kind of get to teach them both, and then fill the open window. Don't so much worry about that ISO. I don't know. I'm anxious to see how it plays out. I might have to call a little freshman ball this year and see. Then I'll have to be thinking about that stuff. So it's pretty neat. How can we call defense in the 4-2-5 and feature one of those guys? And in the traditional, the Joe Daniel football 4-2-5, how can we call that defense and just let that linebacker shine?
We use our bullets strong and bullets weak, and we could blitz them. We can, you mentioned the ISO is like, hey, if we got the stud, we want him to be on the ISO side, which might be the weak side. If you're playing like a traditional I against a traditional 4-2-5 over front, I could also shift the over front, and make that work too. But, quite honestly, the best thing you can do, and this is also why we don't blitz the free safety. The best thing that you can do with a kid who can see the play, trigger, fire, blow it up, sideline to sideline, is to put him at 5 yards and let him freaking play. When you blitz that kid, you're telling him you have a gap. Because you're blitzing him. If you blitz him in A gap, you got A gap. Cool. Great if they run at A gap, probably good if they pass. What if they run the opposite direction? My best player is just gone. Like, I can blitz myself out of having the best player on the field in position to make the play. So when we have a great linebacker, he doesn't blitz. He doesn't blitz at all. I mean, every once in a while you might, but I see teams with really good linebackers. We talk about a couple of our programs that have been really successful, and they had some really good linebackers, and they never blitzed them. They never blitzed them because they didn't need to. Those kids looked like they were blitzing on every play. The only difference was on a pass play, they're dropping into a hook zone instead of, killing the quarterback. So yeah, I could blitz them on some, I can do some crossfires. So, a way to really use them is to put them as the second blitzer on a double A gap crossfire, have the will, attack the front side A gap, and have the mic come off his hip so that hopefully they get pulled and he ends up on the back, and he's going to win that. And he's going to get, but that's on a dead set passing down. That's on your 3rd and 10, third and long type situations. I want to do that because if it's 1st and 10, there's no way I'm losing that kid. There's no way I'm losing that kid. So how do I feature him? I let him go play.
It's like alignment wise, you teach a line to perform a lot in the offensive side. Defensively, can we let's just say we put him to the field a lot. Can we just widen him and like almost get him to the middle of the field? I mean, because that's kind of where I see, like, you want to talk about letting him play.
Well, sure.
He plays fine, but if he's setting, 1.5 feet off the hash because the ball's on the hash, still getting to the field is a son of a gun for him, and he has help in the boundary. So,
sure.
Can we set him out there in a 50 or almost like a 90 backer, and then maybe talking about even if it's going to be power the other way, those linemen aren't looking for him, right? So you almost alleviate some of his problems and then let his strengths come alive, really.
Yeah. So, like, let's say we have a 3-by-1 to the field. Absolutely. We can slide him to the field. So now you want to throw a little RPO and of course they're going to try to read that linebacker, but again, what screws up RPOs to me, this is essentially feathering the option to me. Patience is feathering the option in RPO. He wants to read him, and that dude's just sitting there, and he goes, okay, I'm going to hand it off, and he hands it off, and that kid triggers and fires, and he's faster than everybody else on the field when he's playing. Understand when I say he's faster than everybody else on the field, he's your Mike linebacker. I'm not saying he needs to be 4-5. This is athletic speed and movement. His movement on the football field is far and away better than a kid who might be faster than him at a combine. And that, that's one of Dale's big things is these kids, the 40 time doesn't matter. What do they look like on film? That's what we care about. So I think, yeah, you can definitely slide him to the field, and go double 2 eyes, go with an indie front. And now his B gap is there and he's over top of the tackle. He's got plenty of time to get there. And you can do those things to get him in position to play more in space if you need him to.
Yeah, I also think about like running stunts in front of him. You want to talk about just getting rid of those inside windows. Like you want to talk about just shut a window or a door. You call it somehow. I always call it windows, and you call it doors. But close everything inside. Pinch, slant away from him. Right, because now, or like an echo call, and now he's just sitting outside waiting. Number one, you're going to get a lot of reads that zone read or whatever, and quarterback's going to think it's open. Surprise. But also you're just putting him once again in space and letting him do his thing, let his athleticism take over, his ability to see the picture. I've cleaned the picture up even more. I don't care what that guard does. I'm going to put a defensive end slanting to him and running in his back pocket. We'll take care of that side. Right. So now to me, it just opens up everything for that player. Just let him do his deal. I also think about it. We're talking a lot of run game here, but pass game, weirdly enough, the Tampa 2 is kind of coming back alive in my area. And it is because we have those athletic linebackers that are that's another place. Like I've seen them widen him out, send him deep. And maybe he's not even a true Tampa 2. Maybe it's just using the low hole. Quit telling him run to the dang hook to flat or curl to flat and let him sit in the middle of the field and just poach whatever picture he sees. Almost, in the free safety episode, we talked about letting the free safety be a linebacker at 10. Let that linebacker play free safety at 5.
Right. Well, and he can really be featured in the passing game as far as your teams that want to use crossers. So this is really, really helpful if you're a man team, because teams are going to want to use crossers against you. And if he can recognize, again, pre-programmed, we talk about block threats, but he's also got receiving threats. I got a tight end, or I got a number 3, I got whatever over here. That's the guy who's most likely to come at me. And so I get a pass read and I trigger, and my eyes trigger to that pass threat. Let's say they want to throw a little pop pass. Bam, I'm underneath pop pass. Let's say they're trying to throw crossers. Bam, my eyes trigger to the receiver, the number 3 on a mesh concept, and he's trying to run some sort of crossing route towards me. I trigger and I see him, and I cancel his route. It's still very much like you've got to teach these kids in high school that this is absolutely legal, because they think it's not because of the NFL. The ball's not in the air. It is absolutely legal, clean hit to cancel a receiver, and it will make your life much easier than trying to cover them all.
The quarterback's going to try to progress there.
And again, an instinctive linebacker is going to be better at that, because he sees the picture and he goes, "Oh, it's a pass. Okay, that's the guy most likely to come at me. Up there he is. Cancel." And you don't have to get a lot of them. You don't have to. I say cancel. He doesn't have to be. It's not body count. We used to call it body count, and we would give like a helmet sticker for body count, knocking the guy down. And
you might get canceled as a coach if you call it body count nowadays.
You might now, yeah.
Headhunters and all that good stuff.
Yeah, but we don't need that. We just need the routes to, just like the same theory as press man. Make it not routes on air. As soon as you make it not routes on air, high school offenses have trouble with it.
Well, I think we have checked all the boxes here today. We've talked about these stud linebackers, and just seems like key things here. Just let them play. Quit trying to articulate so much. Let them see the picture and go perform for you. You might change their alignment. You might clean the picture up a little bit. Just let them do their thing.
You're still coaching them, and there's always things. Never think that a high school kid is fully developed. Like, he's not even close. Neither is a college kid. Neither is an NFL kid. If you got to know what you're looking for, and you start to look for the little more minute things that can improve him, and you make sure that he knows this can make you improved. One of the hardest things coaching these guys is they know they're the best one on the field, and so you have to build trust with them that you know what you're doing, and then you can start to coach them. Of course, if you have somebody else who's looking at your film, maybe you don't have that knowledge quite yet in your coaching career, but someone else who has coached a lot of linebackers and who has spent a lot of time in the 4-2-5 defense could look at your film and tell you, here's some things that this kid can do to improve as a linebacker, even though he is very good. That could be a huge benefit to you. And then you're going to seem like the smart guy, and you're going to get the trust built into you, because you don't have to tell them some bald guy on the internet told you what to say, but you just look like a genius. And that's really helpful to you.
It's almost like someone should patent that and put it online and let you use that service.
The people analyze your game film.
Right.
And if you are a JDFP Coaching Systems Platinum client, you will have game film analysis. Join.joedanielfootball.com.
Absolutely. Game film analysis in the Platinum section. Go get it. Gold, it's okay, right? But the analysis is where you want to be. Either
all
way,
the systems are there
one.
in gold. You got all the systems. You just don't have all the bells and whistles.
But regardless which one you get the 4-3, 4-2-5, 3-3 stack, and a 3-4 defensive system. Really programmed together. Even if you want to change from year to year based on your personnel, you don't have to change everything. Umbrella principle is always going to be there. You can generally run the same coverages, so you can make these systems fit your personnel. Also get pistol power offense, which is another great one. We've talked a little bit about it tonight. Not too much. 24, that's a big part of it, I think, and aligned to perform. You can get on and learn more about the pistol power offense and just, once again, help fit an offense that will fit your personnel. And it's all in there. Joe has talked many times about being an inside zone team, and sometimes he's a counter team. So pick your poison. Chalkboard forums and now weekly Chalk Talks, now that we've gotten into season. I unfortunately had to miss the one on Monday, stopping defending the air raid, and I was super pumped about that. So I'll have to go back and watch it, which you can do if you're a client. You can go back and watch those old episodes or those old recordings. And of course, game film analysis in the Platinum group.